How you doing, Dave?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty sweltering in here.
Is it? Yeah,
So
I
I've,
know the
I've got.
feeling. I've got my aircon hell for leather at the moment.
Oh, I want my aircon, but I
It's
can't.
horrible, isn't it?
I just can't do it.
Yeah, too
Here we go.
noisy.
It's the idea, anyway. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk number 368 as we career into the sort of dead spot of summer and August. I'm going to be taking quite a lot of August off, so I'm going to have to find some content to put up to keep you people happy. I want to say thank you very much to everybody. We've got the chatties right there in the chat room, and we've got a couple of guests. Everybody else is out doing stuff, at festivals and what have you, but we're fortunate managed to snaffle a couple of people to join us this week, because that's what we want. We want a bit of discourse, and actually what we'd like is some more crow stories from Mark, because that seemed to, if you haven't checked out last week's show, do check it out. We're on YouTube. If you subscribe to us on YouTube, then you'll be able to get this stuff coming at you without having to go and find it. It'll come and find you, which I'm sure is probably what you want ultimately. We're all a bit lazy when it comes down to it. Anyway, I want to say thank you very much to our show sponsors, Isotope. We've got a new competition this week. You can win a copy of Break Tweaker, more on that later, and we'll also be announcing the winner of last week's competition, who gets a full copy of Iris. So, well, you believe it. So anyway, let's get on to our guests. First of all, we've got Mr. Robbie Bronneman, who's there in Robot Studios, who's fresh from rehearsals, no, not rehearsals. You've been working on Sushi Friday, haven't you? Which is your music project that you're doing in a sort of synthesizer performance style at Robot Studios, right there.
Yeah, and we just finished the first two tracks yesterday, so we're pleased. It's all done.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How long did that take?
It took about, I reckon, 5 days for each one in all.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, spread out. So, yeah, it's fun. We're going to do some more probably in the autumn. But we're just going to get a Bandcamp thing set up for this and get these ones out.
Ah, so you decided to go for the releasing as it goes rather than make an album. Yeah, good on you. I think that's a good
I think
idea.
if you feel like you're actually doing something, getting something out there by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Robbie is as well preparing to go on the road with Howard Jones. He's MD and kind of the guy who sets up all the technology for the show. So I'm guessing that's kind of looming large. You've had that outing because you've got that amazing setup, haven't you, which we've seen in previous shows. Has it had a run out yet?
We've done a few festivals, and last festival we did last weekend in front of 50,000 people, Howard's main stage computer decided to suddenly disintegrate into some sort of weird, what sounded like sample rate nonsense.
Oh God!
I think it's ivory. I just think it's asking too much of it, having it as part of a main stage setup.
Right, so RAM overload.
Yeah, RAM overload. Yeah, so I'm gonna try and persuade him to look at some alternatives. Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
it's great.
I can recommend the E Instruments Session Grand.
Yeah, that's on my list.
They sound good. We did a review of those, and I must admit, I don't know how much of it Howard needs. Whether he needs the sort of the top end of the range, because the thing about E Sessions, it's right down the bottom of the velocities. It sounds really good and very tasty. So,
Piano Tech and all the others, we're going to give them a run as well.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. And that's, I guess, is your homework before the next gig, right?
It is, yeah, because apparently it can't happen again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How very intolerant. Yeah. I didn't realise Mr. Jones was such a diva.
A cappella singing of all your hits while I frantically stand on a computer on stage in front of everybody trying to get it working isn't on the agenda again, apparently.
I'm pretty sure that most of a festival-going audience would like to see live IT. I mean, that's pretty thrilling stuff. Right?
Well. I didn't enjoy it particularly, but everyone else did.
No, right, okay, fair enough. Well, congratulations and the best of luck with that. Anyway, thank you very much, Robbie. Also, we got Mr. Dave Spears, who's joining us from his synth cave. It's very well lit synth cave. There's sunlight and everything. It's gone up in the world.
Yeah, I've got the window open because it's so hot.
Well, Dave, this is your second week in a row.
On the piano front.
Yep.
I know. Weird, isn't it? On the piano front, I had a call from somebody the other week saying, just go and get the Garretown Abbey Road Studio CFX concert grand piano. So check that out.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I will. Excellent. Would you like to?
It's been using Ivory for ages. Sorry, say again?
No, okay. That sounds good. What about the one that's the modelled one that's supposed to be light on footprint? I guess it'd be heavy on CPU but light on RAM.
Pianotech.
Pianotech. Oh, right. Okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, Dave. Well, thank you very much for that tip. Dave Spears, GeForce Software, of course, makers of fine software instruments with stuff in the pipeline, I'm sure. Anyway, I'd also want to just before we start, we've got a new set. I just wanted to say, what do you think? Let me see if I can find it. It's that one. It's my brick wall effect. I've got some special textured wallpaper that I can light. But the only problem is, what's really weird is that line down the middle is not actually the join. It's just where I was really rubbish at sort of wallpapering. The join is actually to the left of it, so I think it's going to work. So we're hopefully going to get some flats and do some more, just so we've got a different background. I'm quite excited by that. Not really anything to do with music technology. I just wanted to show it off. Okay, so let me get my notes. And, yes. This is the sound of a new album by Alessandro Cortini, who, as you may know, I'm a big fan of. He released it, it's called Sono. Lots of Sono, Sonoio. There seems to be a lot of sleep. I think that's Italian for sleep, isn't it? Sono, or quiet, or something. I should check that out. This is. I think this is the title track, Sono, as far as I understand. And this is an album he's made it on the road, apparently with the limitations of. Perhaps we can get him to talk about it, because Dave, you shot a little piece with Mr. Cortini. Is that right?
Yeah. This is part of another thing. But actually, it was so pertinent to this, I kind of carved it out. And you got a bit of an exclusive here.
Excellent. So we're just going to play this. This is Mrs. Alessandro talking about the whole creative process, but also specifically about this album.
The process of having done songs with other people or worked on my own stuff with Sonoio, where it was a lot of fun to do stuff on my own. Then the second record, you do it again. You study marketing, it's fun. And then you realize you have to do a third record. And you kind of know already how much you're going to be making. You kind of know how you're going to do it. And the first song you already stop because you go, you kind of know exactly wherever it's going to go. So you're not sitting there to write because you feel like writing. You sit there because you have to, kind of. And that's when you don't write. And that's when I did an instrumental record that made me feel guilty for a second, because I felt happy when I was doing it. And it was 3.5 hours of stuff that I thought was great, but it was one take. So for a year they just stayed there because I thought they were demos. Because, we can't be good if I just recorded it live in a take. And I lived with that for a year, just going, until John from Important Records went, I'd love to release it however you want. That stuff sounds great. I'm like, maybe it is good, even though I didn't record it 45 times and go for the best take. Then you realize that it's not, a lot of the times it's not about that, especially instrumental music. It's about the performance. And the more time you get familiar with that concept, and then the more confident you are the second time that you do it, and the more you're conscious of the fact that any time you be recording, it could be the time that you recorded, it could be the take. And that's how I ended up doing. There's a record coming out this summer, a record I did, a double vinyl on a MC-202 through a delay, which I think it's funny because people think, who the fuck would like to listen to that? I kind of did. That's how I actually ended up recording it, because I was listening to whatever came out. But so I kind of continued that approach with other instruments, But the 202 was probably one of my favorites, just because the sequencer is so fucked.
Beep.
There's no way
I should have said.
Make it do what, you must be a genius or crazy to program something you have in your mind in it. So you just, smash on those keys and, oh wow, this is cool. And then you do the same for accents and slides. And you'll never come up with something like that. Hit cycle and make sure that it's not, this odd steps. You know what I mean? Run it through delay and just play with the sliders for a half hour. Yeah, it's too bad they're made of shit, because they're really badly made. Roland kind of. Pity, but they're going for big money now. I saw some going for $1,000. That's crazy. For an MC-202.
Yeah, they are very difficult to use. So that was Alessandro Cortini talking to Dave Spears for another project. And the reason we brought this up is just because he's got a new album out, which I sort of introed in the beginning. But it was interesting that essentially he used this album. It's a 9-track album. You can buy it off iTunes. It's on Hospital Productions, not Hospital Records, which is a different thing. Hospital Records is a sort of drum and bass label. Hospital Productions is not. But this was sort of done on the road. I'm guessing, it's quite interesting. It's like, at one moment he's on stage on this massive big buck production, kind of huge 9-inch nails thing, stadiums, and then back in the hotel room messing around with an antiquated Roland MC-202 making a record. And I think he just used that plugged into kind of, I said, I bet you there's some Strymon in there. It sounded very much like it. And Dave, you probably know that, don't you? Because I think he's a big fan of the Strymon delays, and it's a great advert for the stuff. But have you listened to the record or the album?
Not in its entirety. I listened to the clip on YouTube and what he's got on SoundCloud. But I am like you, a big fan, and I just thought there were so many really good points in that. For example, the idea of sitting on something for a year that you've done in a single take, thinking it can't be good. If I kind of enjoyed it and it was all done in one take, it can't be good. And then you kind of sit on it, and maybe if you revisit it, you kind of go, oh, actually, yeah, that's not too bad. So it kind of gives hope to us all, really.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I'm starting to lean very much towards the notion of what Alessandro is doing, in which is creating. I mean, and I've started doing it a little bit with kind of little pieces at the end of modular. If I'm doing a module on for review, I'll just put something together really quickly and do it. I did something on the Micro Brute, which I was really, really pleased with, which is just a one take into a live delay, and that was it. And I think, what, I'm kind of getting into that idea. I know, Robbie, you've just finished a kind of production fest of of a more measured studio approach. I mean, do you ever sort of think, actually, what would be really nice is to do some improv stuff and then figure out a way to make that work, that you can then post it and turn it into something that you use? Or how do you feel about that kind of process?
I thought that was funny, like you said, that you thought, because he'd just done it off the cuff, that because it wasn't considered enough, kind of, that somehow it wasn't valid. And I mean, certainly with our Sushi Friday project, we've done a lot of stuff where we've just recorded loads and loads of things without any kind of idea how we're going to use it or what we're going to do with it. Obviously, we've gone through it afterwards and have kind of consolidated what we feel is the most acceptable things. But I mean, there is something nice, isn't there, about that kind of spontaneous approach? Because you don't really, us musicians, particularly in electronic music, we tend to be very considered in our views and our ways of working, and it's quite nice to think about kind of just breaking away from that and just being spontaneous. But it's not something I do a lot, but I definitely would like to do some more of it after doing these projects, because it's so much fun to kind of hear the results afterwards.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether there's a way that we could kind of work on an idea of remote collaboration, particularly with modular stuff. I've got this again, this notion that I think I talked about before, which is using freeze reverbs and then just building stuff up on it. But I really like the idea of it. And the one thing, if you listen to the album, I mean, if you're looking for kind of beats and production values, then forget it. This isn't the one for you. But there's something very it forces you to focus on the subtleties of the changes of the sound, and they are pretty subtle. I'd say that's probably my only criticism is the tonal palette is perhaps not as broad as it could be, considering the power of the synthesizer. But I'm guessing he was going for a specific mood. But just the notion of these tiny movements and very slow movements of resonance and hitting those spots, and particularly when that's spinning off into large amounts of space and reverbs, and the degeneration of the reverbs and the distortion that happens there, you start to really notice. And it made me listen a lot more carefully than perhaps I would ordinarily do, because there's only so much material in there. You have to focus on the two things that are making it up and the evolution between them, and that's quite challenging. I mean, it's pretty brave, don't you think, to be able to do that, Dave?
Yeah. I think it's obvious, but it is an ear thing, isn't it? I mean, I find here sometimes I just leave. It's a bit absurd, but I'll just leave little resonant sweeps going. Usually very deep tones, low tones, because I find them quite soothing. And then occasionally I'll just go and switch something else on and do something similar. But it's the way all those things kind of interweave and work together that kind of give me the little goosebump moments.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether or not, I mean, because we've talked about trying to do analog performance stuff in the past, and I'm wondering whether or not, you know, people get quite terrified by that because they think, oh, the gear won't work, they've got a sequence, or you've got to do all of this stuff. But actually, you know, maybe you don't. Maybe you could be much more low-key about the whole thing. And in fact, and the same thing happened, we did a thing with Gaz last week when we put all these things to the iPad, 7 devices on an iPad, and had a jam at the end. And it was, I honestly thought, you know what, that is the first time I've actually had a jam in I can't remember how long at all. And it just had something about it. And I keep going back and listening and going, oh, there's some nice bits in there, you know, and I have no idea what I did. I don't think Gaz does either. And it's sort of, I quite like the fact that that is the case myself. And I think you're right, Robbie. There's something about, in electronica, it's always very considered, isn't it? I mean, do you think it might come from the original sort of notion of these sort of boffins with EMSs and tape concrete and all this sort of stuff, where you've actually got to put all this really hard work? It's just so difficult to actually make the stuff, but actually it could be a lot easier if you made it so.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, isn't it, a lot of electronic music and stuff is so kind of based in everything being absolutely perfect and locked together and in time with itself. We're kind of, and particularly with computers now, we go on the grid, don't we, and you know, line up waveforms to the absolute, you know, to the total limit. So we kind of almost do the old edit by eye thing with working. I do it a lot, and I just have to sometimes just go, right, stop doing that, turn the computer screen off and listen to what I'm doing. Because you just get so into that whole thing of it. If it looks right, it must be right. And I think, you know, this is totally the other convention, isn't it? If it sounds right, it must be right.
Yes, I think that's true.
It's quite liberating, I think.
Definitely. In fact, let me just bring up the webpage here. Alessandro Cortini, Sono, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Hospital Productions. You can get it on iTunes as well. So yes, do check it out. And of course, Alessandro's followed that system up through you know, his improvisations with the Buchla system, and I think Sonoio was a more measured and considered production. It was a lot more complex, incredibly complex, and I found that quite fascinating myself as well. So hopefully we're going to get a chance to talk to Alessandro at some point in the future. But do check it out, and I think as long as your expectations, you know, it's not something you're going to hum along to, but it's definitely just sets a mood. It's a sort of ambient piece, I would say, or pieces.
Don't you find though, with things like that, where you've got this kind of backdrop, this kind of ambient-ish backdrop,
yeah,
it stimulates me to think of other lines that go on top or other sounds, but it needs that kind of fundamental backdrop in the first place. I think that's why I love that. We talked about who was the woman who had the 2500? Is that Elaine Radigue?
The French lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the same kind of thing when you listen to, you know, like a 20-minute composition. Actually, I find that really inspiring because you walk away with like a million ideas. And then, of course, you've got to try and put them down and make them half as decent as what you've heard. But it's quite an interesting... It's a good stepping stone, I find.
Yeah, maybe something to listen to before you start doing something of your own. I don't know, as a possibility. That's an interesting thought. Okay, well, in a sort of similar vein, I mean, again, this is as we've seen before with you know, people performing on laptops can be less than fascinating. I know Robbie spends a lot of time, you know, because computers are necessary in terms of a live performance there, making the whole thing visually more interesting, and succeeds very well. And here's another group that have done something very similar. This is the Stanford Laptop Orchestra, SLORC. And this is them performing something called Twilight, which is inspired by a science fiction short story, Twilight, by John W. Campbell. And it's a guy called, I'm not sure if it's Gay Wang or G Wang or Get, so excuse my pronunciation. But what I find really interesting about this is this almost this choreography. Obviously, they're using motion sensors of some description. But the fact they're using the movement as a whole, almost in terms of dance, it makes it much more impact than somebody just one person waving their arms about with a theremin or something like that. And I think, obviously it's beautifully shot and what have you, but it's a very interesting notion. I won't play it all because I'll probably get busted, although I'd struggle to find YouTube's music algorithm might have trouble identifying some of that stuff and attributing it. But really interesting idea, that, and I've never seen that before. Have you seen anything similar to that, where it's not just a collective of musicians with laptops, but this notion of using sensor and movement?
Yeah, I saw these people, a group of people, performing some works of Steve Reich with their own kind of stations that were very computer based. And interestingly, it was they did that whole thing of they all had their own little PA, so the sound was localized to each person in like a concert hall, so it didn't come out through a communal PA. So it felt like the sound for that instrument was coming from that person, and it all kind of went together. And I thought it was interesting. I mean, you're right. It's that whole thing of trying to make laptop music not seem like somebody's doing their emails, which is always the key. And that was kind of, I found that very interesting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. There's opinions are split in the chat room. What's it? That's one pseudo academic crap, says Gok. I think that's fair enough. And ordinarily, I would kind of tend to agree, but I think they've kind of understood something. There's a performance aspect that actually brings it out. But I quite enjoyed the. Yes, what was it? Omnipulse says it reminds him of the sound of 2001 soundtrack title, at the beginning where they're at the monolith. Yes, the Asimov thing. That sounds, that's Kubrick, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was interesting. Interestingly, Guy Wang, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, is assistant professor at the Center for Computer Research and Music and Acoustics, CCRMA, at Stanford. He's also computer science as well. So, I mean, he's a pretty clear boffin. If you see, I mean, he's posted a few videos and what have you, and some of them are kind of fun, but they're all kind of quite experimental. It'd be quite an interesting job, wouldn't it, to have that, just to sort of basically follow your nose and invent stuff. Be a professor that's just designed, academia. That'd be kind of cool. Would you like that gig? Where could you do it? Cambridge? I don't know. No, perhaps. What about a professor of pop?
Wasn't there some? Didn't Mark send a link through a few weeks ago that you could become a doctor of music technology or something?
I don't know. That's a good idea.
I think he was asking if we could get honorary ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Awesome. That would certainly top the list of all of my qualifications. I didn't actually do terribly well academically.
But would that academic thing actually mean you actually get any work from it? That's the question.
I'm not sure about that sort of stuff. That sort of stuff doesn't always be the case. I tell you one thing. The only one I was ever tempted by is when I did a co-write of a song that got a novello, and straight afterwards I got would you like to become a fellow of the Royal Society, so I could put FRSA after my name. And I just thought I thought about it. I thought, you know what, I would really like that. And then I saw it would cost me about $1,000 a year, and then I just thought, actually, yeah, I'm not sure about that. But it's a good thing to put in front of it. I wonder if you can just pay once and then you get to keep it forever. But I think you've got to remain a fellow of the Royal Society. And obviously harvest various award ceremonies to see who they can sort of... They catch them at the point where they're feeling really, really elated and relevant in society, and then they try and get the money out of them. I wonder if it's the same thing. You can get an honorary doctorate, but you have to pay for it. I wonder if that's the case. I don't know.
Probably.
Anyway, this is probably a good time maybe to talk about our ad, because we've got a few things to discuss. Oh, my monitor's just switched off. That's probably not supposed to happen. Where's that then? Excuse me a minute. That's got my information on it that I sort of need. That's gone. That's pretty not so good. Okay, maybe it'll switch on now and it'll work. Obviously, we have Isotope. If I press the button, then the ad will go. I'll do the ad first, and then we can get to the winner of last week's competition and the new competition for this week. How about that? Smooth, eh? So this week we're talking about Break Tweaker, which is a relatively new piece of software co-designed with BT. Isotope's Break Tweaker is not just a drum machine, it's a drum sculpting and beat sequencing environment that blurs the line between rhythm and melody. It's got an eclectic collection of beats, presets and samples, lots and lots of sounds, and you can make your own in there as well, with synthesis and sample layers, all sorts of polyrhythmic. I think they use a different phrase in there where you can actually have multiple rhythms running together, aliasing. You can use rhythmic slicing to derive everything from pitch melodic lines to sweeping rhythmic overtures. You can manipulate audio at a molecular level. This is one thing that they talk about. You can reinvent any beat by controlling pitch, rhythm and texture at the finest resolution. It gets very granular as well. Create complex rhythms, polyrhythmic beats. Oh dear, I'll tell you what, the trailer's too short. I'm going to have to keep going. You can experiment with its stunning content, explore presets, drum samples, wavetables designed by today's musicians and DJs, including BT. You can craft the perfect sound, take control of your beats, easily trigger and sequence complex patterns and samples using AD MIDI control. I do quite fancy having a look at this, actually. I don't know if anyone's had a chance, but if you want to check it out, then you should go to isotope.com and follow the links, and you should be able to download some form of demo. I'm winging that might not be the case because there's a load of content to come down with, but do check out the demos and what have you. There may well be a demo to go, and while we're at it, we're going to have a competition to win this as well. You do need to be a member of Twitter, but I'll tell you that in a second. For what I will do at the moment is announce last week's winner. Well, no, let's do that winner. So you can win Isotope Break Tweaker. What you have to do, we've done this before, you need to tweet the hashtag Break Tweaker for this week to @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc. Using Twitter, the hashtag Break Tweaker, @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc. And then we will enter you into a draw, and all you have to do is basically wait till next week and we'll announce a winner. In fact, from last week's winner, up until now, we've been giving away a copy of Isotope Iris. Well, I say we, I mean Isotope. Obviously, it's nothing to do with me, really. I am merely the mouthpiece. But would like to say there is a winner from last week, and I think we asked you to tweet "Find Music in Everything," which is one of the kind of taglines for the Iris spectral synthesizer. And the winner is Jack Delora. It's @Jack Delora on Twitter. If he wants to get in touch with me, then we will unleash the Isotope Fairy, and she will leave you something kind of like the Tooth Fairy, but in a sort of music technology digital sense, and you will receive Iris. But to win Break Tweaker, which is this week's, what you got to do, as I've said, @SonicNick and @Isotope Inc. with the hashtag Break Tweaker. I've moved that out of the way. There we go. I've messed it all up. There we go. Oh, it's all going wrong. There we go. That's what the layout says. So do that and you can win a copy. Phew. That's close. Anyone had a chance to check out Break Tweaker? It's one of those ones that I've been meaning to do for ages, but I just haven't had a chance. And it looked really interesting. The demo I saw at Music Messer was really quite interesting. Robbie, have you checked that out? Because I know
I bought it the day it came out. Yeah, I've been using it for ages.
Oh, right.
Great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of all that stuff. So I'm using it for vocals and all sorts of other things, pads, not just beats. Yeah, it's good fun.
So you can chuck kind of any sample into it and just do that stuff to it. Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of one of those things because I think BT kind of pioneered that time cutting up stuff on his album, This Binary Universe, and he had like a sort of a kind of a prototype kind of old bit of software he was doing it on way back about 4 or 5 years ago. So he's been talking about releasing that all since then. So I've been waiting for that to happen. So yeah, it's great.
Excellent. Well, yes, do check it out. And it's become a far extended advert there. But so yes, you can win one. Just follow the competition and we'll do. So what's the next thing? Oh yeah, God, of course. Here we go. Right. So how many did you spot? This is a chap called Davey 504. From Italy, and he put a video together of 100 great bass lines. Michael Jackson there. Chic, quite a lot of Chic action in there. A hell of a lot of Chili Peppers. Way too much. Nothing from Mick Karn at all. I'm guessing he's not a Japan kind of guy. So he put together this whole thing, and it made me think, actually, there's a load of great bass lines. And even there was half of them were missing, so therefore there's got to be some other candidates. I know you're a bit of a bass head. Dave. He wasn't a bad player, actually. He was playing a Mexican Fender Jazz, I think it was. Made in Mexico.
Wow. I like the Fender. I like the tone of the Fender Jazz. It's got that honk.
Yeah.
Which I do like. Yeah, it was good. It was really good. I mean, obviously recognised all of them. Actually, to be honest, I probably got about halfway through before I turned it off.
Only half?
And I'm not saying that it was not good. It was just that I was busy and I was waiting for Boogie on Reggae Woman, to be honest. I was kind of thinking, oh, come on, or Too High or something like that.
I think he might have done Boogie on Reggae Woman. He might have done later on.
He did Higher Ground. I know that. And in fact, I think I might have turned it off when he got to Master Blaster, which, yeah, great bass line, but it just, it didn't.
Didn't work for you?
Work. No, it didn't. It didn't. But, hey, I'm not criticising. It was a top job.
You can check him out on Facebook if that's your desire. He's got a web page where he's posting some interesting things, and I think he posts a video. There you go, crazy fast slap bass solo, just your sort of thing, eh, Robbie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very well done, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, a lot of my favourite bass lines for things are like not famous things. It's just like, you have certain tracks, don't you hear over the years? You just think that's just, I just love listening to over and over because of the bass line. I'm a massive fan of the bass lines of Guy Sigsworth in his productions.
Yes,
they're not famous. They're not famous bass lines, but it's just that kind of whole bendy, kind of elastic nature of the stuff he does,
and the sound he uses.
Yeah. I mean, there's a track on the what's the name from Yazoo? What's the singer? Alison Moyer. Right, called Writer's Rain. It's got this amazing bouncy, bendy bass line. And I just sat here when I heard that in the studio, and I just listened to it about 20 times in a row, going, how can you do that? How can I do that? So, I'm a big fan of bass lines.
I'm searching for that now.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I'm looking for it. Let's see if we can find it. I want to hit... I'm going to play it in the background. Let's see what that sounds like. Oh, I'm going to have to...
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want an ad. Get off. I want the bass line. Get stuffed. Here it comes.
Wait, it comes in a sec.
All right, we're going to test it. We're going to test you now. Better be good.
After she sings the first bit.
So we'll probably get busted on this one as well. There's Alison herself.
If you can't be happy with you.
Ah, there we go. Oh, yeah.
Go, I'll fight you.
He's got some great minimalist groove, and he some of the stuff that he did on the Imogen Heap Frou Frou stuff was, a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I think
when was this out?
That was out like a year or so ago. It's a phenomenal album.
Oh, right.
It's the album he produced for her. It's brilliant.
Okay, we're going to have to check that
I
out.
get that. Big fan of
Yeah,
his.
it's really good.
Yes.
Funny enough, the White Stripes thing reminded me a bit of what we were talking about, the Laptop Orchestra. Don't know if anyone saw Jack White on at Glastonbury, but he had a guy keyboard player who played theremin. Firstly, it was funny because he had this kind of musketeer's moustache, but then he did this really funny thing with the theremin thing. When he finished the sound, he kind of closed it off, and then he threw it in like a waste paper bin. A virtual waste paper bin inside him. Really made a real thing of it, throwing it away and then starting again. It's just kind of, yeah.
That's what we need, more eccentricity, I think.
Yeah.
I think someone should do... Dave, in fact, you seem best placed. You should do a, maybe not 100, but, maybe 20 or 50 great synth bass lines.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Would be really fun.
It's got to be Funkin' for Jamaica. It's got to be in there.
Yeah, anything by Bernie Worrell, Parliament, Funkadelic, all that kind of stuff. It's just those tones that just really got to me as a kid, It was like, what is that? What makes that sound? I have to have that machine. It's got that. It's so musical, but still nasty.
Okay, I got one for you. This one, and it's perhaps not so fashionable, but Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now, the bass line in that. What was that? Because that was very articulate for the time. It was lots...
Oberheim.
Was it an
Oberheim OBX, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it really? Thank you very much. I'm going to have to look for that now. Hold on. Hold Me Now. There was a few bass that they used on that, didn't they? Not Johnny Logan.
Still got that Oberheim. I was chatting to him about it the other day.
Really?
Yeah, he's still got it. He said it's very decrepit, but he's still got it.
Let me have a look. Thompson Twin told me that. Right, I'm going to play this. We'll see what that sounds like. We'll probably get busted for this as well. Oh no, get on with it.
Look at our life now.
There we go.
Tattered and torn.
Funnily enough, they actually had a video. In the video, there's a guy playing the bass. Well, we know that's not true. Synth bass lines. Yeah, I think someone should do one of those. And Dave, you're the guy.
Yeah,
It'd be really good
we
fun.
had this crazy idea that we kind of joked around on tour. How myself and our drummer, we've got this kind of fictitious band called the Electrios, and we were saying we should do a tour of 100 greatest synth hooks. You know, like, so synth hooks from all ages, from across the genres, with like loads of people on synths on stage. We thought people would come and see that as a kind of fun thing.
You've got to do. I tell you what, this has been fast. That's a great idea. Now, is it Popcorn? There's a sequence behind Popcorn that is just mental. I'll see if I can play it. It's just, see if we got this. Is someone's actually playing this. Look at that. Because it speeds up, doesn't it? Anyway, I'll get busted for that as well. What the hell? I'm going for the full censorship of YouTube today. We're not going to be able to monetize this video, that's for sure. So that was fun. Anyway, the greatest bass lines. That's just a brilliant project and something I can heartily recommend. 100 great bass lines. That was Davey504. Do check him out on YouTube. On Facebook, which is Davey504. That's IE. What do we got next? Oh yeah, this is the return of the SD3000. What's that? That's another video I've got somewhere. Have I got a video for that? Here we go. Classic effects. And I remember these, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? There were all these kind of analog delays from back in the day. And obviously this is Edge's roadie, and he's been trying to keep the SD3000, the Korg, alive for a long time. I won't play the whole thing, so get busted for that as well. But that's obviously got a very specific sound, and Korg have reissued it, and it looks quite good actually. And they've because there's apparently something about the sound of the preamp as well, which really sort of helps with the tone. So even with no delay, it sort of adds a bunch of stuff, and just made me wonder about, are there any of those kind of hardware effects from back in the day that you sort of? I know, Robbie, you like to kind of keep everything in the box. I mean, even though you got a lot of synths.
I have to say, I'm loving I'm just in love with these Strymon pedals. And we've been putting them on everything. I mean, the timeline, the kind of interesting delays you get. I mean, I know you can get, if you get your Sound Toys Echo Boy out, and there's all the different delays in it. But it's something really different about working with pedals like this, which I haven't really put any effort and time into before. But I've really realised over the last few weeks that you can just get some really interesting, unexpected things. And it has got a totally different character.
And that's
so
modern classics, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they kind of like the Holy Trinity. Those three together, those Strymon pedals, they're brilliant. Yeah,
it's very funny. I've been so we got obviously the El Capistan, and Louise, Mrs. bought me the Blue Sky for my birthday and whatnot, and I've been just championing the El Capistan for ages, taking it around various museums, and I've got a feeling we may have been responsible for at least 5 fairly major people buying them. And of course then I mentioned that to Carl Hyde, and who's on an effects tip at the minute, and he's like, yeah, but maybe if everyone's using it, maybe I shouldn't use it, kind of thing. And I keep sort of putting these effects and stuff in front of him, and they are just brilliant. I mean, we've got the Space Echo stuff, and we use that quite a lot, but that El Capistan is so close and actually more controllable than the actual, what have we got, the 301.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful. And that big the Blue Sky is the one I've got, which again is just, they've really got it sussed, really have.
They need to make Eurorack versions. They really do.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very good idea of that stuff. But what about back in the day? I mean, I know, when I used to do a lot of live sound, we used to have, I think it was a Roland SDE, actually, which was a digital delay. Well, digitally controlled analog delay. And we also had SPX90, which was the massive. The chat room's been mentioning a whole bunch. There was the Boss SE70. I don't know if you remember that one. That was one of the first multi effects that you could run two left and rights into it and have actually dedicated in. You could run it as two effects, which was one of the first things. But it did a whole bunch of stuff. And some of those things, you kind of miss, even though they're like painting the hall through the letterbox sort of vibe with that terrible to edit. There's something about them. I know if Mark was here, he'd probably rave about the SPX90, but I miss that. I used to use that on all the drums, everywhere, live anyway. There were certain sounds you could get from it. Have you got any old classics?
Me?
Yeah.
I've got this one. I've got this, which is a beauty.
Oh, that's a Boss. What's that?
It's a jet phaser.
Oh.
So just think all the Isley Brothers stuff on the guitar. So like
Summer Breeze.
Yeah, that lead guitar sound. Who's that lady and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, God, I remember did a remix of the Isley Brothers.
Beauty. And I've got a touch wire, I think it's called a Y-triggered filter electroharmonics thing, which is actually in need of repair now, but I've used that. I use that a lot with like the Mutron stuff. Yeah, awesome. I mean, there are certain hardware. I mean, obviously the Lexicon stuff, and for some reason, some of that Lexicon stuff just sits brilliantly with the CS, and I've not really heard anything that sits beautifully with the CS80 until the Strymon box came along. But it's amazing how, I mean, Underworld, for example, they use the Sony delays and reverbs, and they're such an inherent part of their sound that they're
Sony, I've never heard of them. I remember the reverbs.
DPS.
Yeah.
God,
I mean, they're buying them on eBay now because it's like,
I remember there's one that had a wooden front, something like that, or some kind of teak effect. Maybe a high-end one. I forget now. I was going to go somewhere with that, and I've completely forgotten what it was now. So I'm afraid I've lost that moment. We'll just go to the.
I mean, the SPX90
I've got tumbleweed, but I've got a brick wall. Sorry.
The SPX90 and was it the Rex 50? I mean, they were kind of real game changers for anybody on a kind of budget.
Rex 50, flipping it. That was the first effects unit I had. One of those. Yeah. That's that funny little desktop thing.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
I had an original Alesis MIDI verb, which was the desktop thing. They did a MIDI verb and an MFX and a MIDI, and then I've still got the MIDI verb 2. I haven't got a power supply for it, which I used all over everything because I bought when I was kind of doing mixes and stuff. We thought we better buy some better quality reverb, so I think I bought a TC Electronics M1000, which was again a dual engine thing. But I always found it was too good. It was too sort of thin, I needed that kind of really unsubtle effect. And I remember the thing about the MIDI Verb 2, and I've probably said this before, and I'll say it, so I'm starting to repeat myself like a doddery old git. But the MIDI Verb 2, if you drive it really, really hard, because it had those never-ending reverbs and then gate them, you get these amazing sounds to sort of distorted reverb. Is actually quite an interesting sound that you don't hear very much, probably for good reason. But I think the high-quality reverbs, when you distort them, just don't have the same inherent quality to them. But
I had this Alesis box before that, I think, called the Alesis XT something, XTC or something. It just had like 4 push buttons and a couple of knobs on it. I think it was the pre-runner to the MIDI verb. And again, it was really noisy and dirty sounding, but it did have a really nice quality.
I absolutely love those.
Oh, sorry, hold on, I'm going there. There it is.
The N-Sonic
XTC.
DP.
Yes.
The DP16, whatever it was.
DP4, I think.
Oh, yeah, DP4, that was it, yeah.
That's the one I had. I absolutely adored that. I thought that was an amazing piece of kit for the time.
There's a MIDI verb. Oh, look at that. That was one
and
of
even those little Lexicon LXP ones, were they the ones?
Yeah, MXP1 and MXP5.
LXP1, LXP5. Yeah, I had those two. I had a pair of them.
They were great fun.
With their own little controllers, so you could pretend like you had a lark.
That's right, yeah. Little LRC that you could get with it that almost cost. Actually, I remember because I remember when I first went to New York, which was I think we were sent over to meet Suzanne Vega when all of that stuff happened. I bought a pair of Lexicons because the dollar was they're American and they were the dollar was really low. And I smuggled them back in my luggage, and I've got a top tip from somebody at the time. Apparently, what you do is if you get soap and you scrape soap all over the things so they look old and knackered, so they don't look like they're new things you've just taken out of the box. So I just covered them in soap and made them look all beat up and put them in my luggage and brought them in. And I was like, yes! I got in with me pair of lexicons. I think they cost me about $300 or $400. As opposed to double that over here because they were so expensive. But I had them for a while actually, and I think I ended up doing I made loads of editors for them in Cubase. We had the remote control programming and made faders for changing the stuff, and that's right. But you had the little. It was all just MIDI system exclusive stuff as far as I remember.
When your studio got hot and sweaty, did they all get foamy after that?
Yeah, I couldn't grab. Every time I wanted to change anything, I just sort of slipped off. Yeah. They smelled nice though.
So nice, yeah.
Excellent.
Which makes a change for most
effects,
reverb units.
To try that cover and do that with mics, just sort of rub the grills with carbolic soap so that when you you get a bit bubbly. Anyway, that's probably...
My trick is Rohypnol with microphones. It usually works quite well. You've got a singer you're not particularly keen on.
They just kind of fall asleep halfway through the gig. Yeah. Don't try that at home, kids. That was a joke. Right.
Yes.
So yes, that's the SDD3000, which I think let's see, how much is it going to be? I've got
329 quid, I think.
Oh really? That's not bad. It looks pretty I like the look of that. It looks like what they've done is they've cut the rack in half and they've just put one above the other, but it's also got a bunch of
and added a handrail to it.
That's right. Yeah, just so you could. Well, so when you're stomping on it, you don't break the toes, the stuff. Yeah. I guess.
Does anyone know of a kind of 4-way multi-position guitar foot pedal?
I don't know what that. A 4-way multi-position good pedal.
Yeah, so let's say you're a guitarist and you're putting your effects through some MIDI controlled device, but actually what you want is... I mean, the only thing I've found is that Keith McMillan stuff. And with your foot, you want X, Y, and left and right to assign that to various controls. If anyone knows of anything like that, please let me know.
Yes, the KMI Soft Step 2, in fact, which I have lurking about here somewhere. That will do XY stuff. If you're looking for MIDI control, I'm assuming that's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
You could probably power that off a footboard. Or the other thing, obviously, is MIDI pedals of some description. I mean, I know that if you take the Eventide Black Hole and some of their pedals, they have fancy inputs for MIDI and also for controllers, so you can control a lot of that stuff in real time. Because the Eventide pedals are amazing. I mean, because speaking of classic effects, obviously there's the H3000 and was it H1000 was their first? And the there was a whole range of them, wasn't there? I'm sure we've talked about this quite recently, but maybe even last week. But they had some great algorithms in them, and the new Eventide stuff's pretty good. Have you got any of that stuff, Robbie?
The Eventide plugins?
No, the Eventide hardware, the pedals.
No, but I do remember a few years ago, Howard had Bob Clearmountain left a couple of big racks at Howard's, literally for about 20 years at his old studio, just because they were stuff he used when he was in the UK, except he never used it, just sat there. And I remember I used to muck around. He had this whole rack with all those classic Eventides in, and all sorts of MXR flangers and all sorts of stuff. I didn't know at all what I was doing with them because they were quite, they're quite intense, aren't they, programming wise? But they're such great sound.
I used to take one out on the road. The band that I was working with used it quite a lot as part of their sound, so they brought it with them and stuck it in my rack, so I had to incorporate it into the mix and had to change all the programs and stuff. I remember that. God, that's the thing about live sound. I remember all that messing about where you had to change programs on all these different things at the same time. God. Oh, God, that was terrifyingly complicated, whereas now it's just a recall business. Much easier, if you can, I suppose. Certainly with something like the Behringer, and not all desks have the same thing, but it would make sense for people to put program change outputs so you can change stuff up. I guess because you run a lot of your stuff live in Ableton, don't you? So the effects change and they go on a per clip.
Yeah,
or a
I
per...
have effect racks that change that I bring up for different tracks and stuff. Yeah, it's an automated world for us. All that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that makes it a lot easier to deal with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I do quite a lot of stuff on the TC Helicon Voice Live 3 pedal, so I can bring bespoke things in and out anyway, like that. So I do a bit manually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Is there anything left? Oh yes, of course. We've got this, haven't we? This is the. Let's see if this is the right video to play. Oh no, this one. It's actually, bizarrely, because the Edge is famously uses the Korg delay. This is very U2-y when he gets going. This is Roger Lynn late at night on his webcam, demonstrating the Linnstrument, which is still in prototype but is looking very well formed. This is apparently in split keyboard mode. I'm sure it can do a lot of things, but you can hear there's quite a lot of expression going on. X, Y, and pressure, position. Looks quite hard to play. You're going to have a crick neck if you're doing that strapped on for any length of period of time, but I won't play the whole thing. I know that Jem Godfrey was hoping to join us this week because he's been working on some stuff which is to do with expression and hardware and what have you. I know, Robbie, in terms of live, obviously you're always looking at things to sort of spice up the live side of things. I mean, are these kind of bespoke, interesting controllers? Do you think they help in a visual way? I mean, obviously there's two aspects to them, isn't there? You look a bit more involved in what you're doing, but you're also able to express yourself more. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, though, isn't it? I mean, like, unless you're going to strap them on like this, or kind of have them above your head or something. I mean, that's what I do with the 8 launch pads behind me. Nobody can see what you're doing. If you've got everything in front of you, unless you've got like giant mirrors above you or screens looking down on top of you, essentially, all people see is a side profile of something long and oblong
with some blinking lights on, maybe.
You're getting a kick out of. But I mean, I'm very into these kind of controllers. I mean, that's got quite a lot of kind of crossover, hasn't it? That controller with something like the Haycom Continuum kind of thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking like the Eigen Labs, the Eigen Harp, and the I can't remember what, the Pico as well. But again, you have
to dedicate yourself to using them, though, don't you? You have to go, right, I've got this controller. I don't know how to use it. It's not like a traditional keyboard, but I'm going to spend a couple of months finding a really good application for it. Otherwise, you just put it on a few times and go, yeah, this is nice, and then you just don't really commit to it.
Yeah, that's very
and
true.
And that's the thing. Yeah.
Dave, something like that,
definitely.
if you had CV out, I guess CV control with those sort of expression things would be quite powerful, right?
It's poly aftertouch, isn't it? So it must be MIDI.
I'd imagine at least, yeah.
I mean, you've got to have poly aftertouch on something like that. I like it. I like it. In fact, I thought what he played was pretty cool. I think the only price thing that I've seen is between $1,000 and $2,000 so far.
Yeah.
But it's something, I'll tell you what I'd like to have heard in the demo is the raw sounds and then him playing it with those instruments, with his instruments.
Yeah, so we could understand what it was doing. Yeah,
because certain parts of that lead sounded very expressive, as he was kind of pressing harder on that particular zone.
It would have been nice to see the patch, as you say, sort of exploded, so that we knew what was being mapped where and how it was working. Yeah, I agree. I mean, because that would give us an idea of how much of a pain it is to set up with things that don't immediately talk Linnstrument, and B, give us some ideas to try, because I mean those are the sort of things that you can map. There are already things that we've got that would do that, that would enable us to add that level of control. With I just looked at the Trigger Finger Pro. That's got poly pressure and control pressure, so you can assign it to be just aftertouch, poly aftertouch, or a specific controller on a per pad basis across what's it, 4 banks of 16. So, those are the sort of things maybe combined with a keyboard that we could actually have lots and lots of expression with quite easily.
I saw him do another demo of that instrument about a month ago where he was playing like blues harmonica
Yes,
parts.
I saw that as well, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gave you a bit more of kind of what you could possibly do, with that kind of expression side of it. But yeah, I like Dave. I'm kind of interested in it, but it's quite an expensive interest.
I suppose. I mean, but that's the thing. As I was suggesting, almost, if you've got a bunch of buttons that will send some sort of data on pressure, then do you need to have a dedicated, you could actually end up with just a little pad with 3 or 4 things on it that you could assign a map. You don't really need an entirely new way of playing. You could just enhance the notes you were already playing with another hand, perhaps.
Yeah, it's possible, but it kind of takes away from the sort of performance aspect, doesn't it? I mean, and price-wise, consider this up against, say, something like the Seaboard.
Yeah. Well, the Roly Seaboard is a considerably more expensive. Bizarrely, even though it has actually much less moving parts, many less moving parts, like 1 moving part, I suppose, but all of the sensors. But yeah, I don't know how that's doing. Actually, have anybody seen? Because did you try one, Robbie?
I haven't tried one. I was interested at first. I don't know anyone who's actually had hands-on with it. Have you had a hands-on, Dave?
No, I know Jem has.
Right.
A while ago, but I'm not sure what state it was then.
Yeah, I have as well.
I mean, it looks really. You have you?
Yeah, I've played it. I played with it. I think there were 2 because they first of all they came down to early stage. They came down to Real World and showed it to myself and Dickie Chappell and whoever else was interested, and that was early stage. And there wasn't really much to see, but I got to play with it and feel what it felt like, and it was unusual and something that you would have to learn as well. And then I've seen it at I think we did something on it at NAMM as well, and I had another play. And I think it's one of those things that you can play very quickly once you sort of start to get your head around it and you use. But again, it's all about those are the sort of things that you have to spend such a lot of time tinkering with to get all of the movements something that you're comfortable with. I had the same thing because we had the Eigen Labs Pico here, which is the thing that looks like an electronic oboe, small one, admittedly, or maybe a harmonic, what are those things? And I just couldn't make any sense of it because every time I touched it, it just went. It was all around the note, and it would have taken such a. And because the editor was a lower. The editor wasn't quite, up to scratch really at the time. It was impossible to kind of go, right, select all the keys and just set them all to be this feel. You had to do one by one, and it's all of that kind of stuff that makes it that's important when you're setting this stuff up, so that you can very quickly tailor it, or tailor how far you're prepared to go into the learning how to play a new instrument. You can rein it in a bit while you learn, and then maybe open it up as you get more proficient, I suppose.
And I think that's one thing.
Sorry.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's the one thing about Roger Lynn. He's got so much experience. I mean, what you've got with the Rolly guys are obviously new kids on the block. The Eigenharp guys, obviously they did their research, but they haven't got as much experience as, say, somebody like Roger Lynn creating something that's actually pre-programmed with various templates that makes it easier for the muso to just kind of pick it up and play. That's what I hope, anyway.
Yeah, I think perhaps you're right. Sorry, you were going to go in there, Rob, as well.
Yeah, what I was going to say what I find bizarre about that Roly thing is it's essentially just like a one-colour big slab of granite, granite grey. You're never going to see that on a stage unless you've got like some bright light right above you. I mean, there's no markings to tell you where you are at all. That's what I found quite weird about the idea, certainly from a live point of view.
I don't know, maybe you can get the it's some sort of foam resin, which I imagine you might be able to get them to mould it in a different colour. I don't know. I mean, presumably it's just a dye.
One other colour, bright red block.
Yeah.
Is it foam?
Well,
is it foam?
It feels, yes, it does feel like foam. I mean, it's quite, it is raised. It's not, it's kind of got bumps. It's quite peaks and troughs. But yes, I take your point.
You have to keep the stoners away from it with the old dope burns.
Yeah, no, apparently it's very it's very resilient, apparently. It's some sort of, I don't know what it is, some sort
They've
of...
tested it, have they, in those real world?
I don't know whether they've tested it in that particular burning drops of substance, no, but...
You have the ROHS, whatever it is, rating, don't you, for safety things? Is there going to be a whole new category?
That really does my head in. Sometimes we bought synths off of eBay and they've turned up and, they've been described as immaculate and something, and then they turn up and it's just like, there's a dope burn, there's a dope burn. It's like, ah.
I think, if I remember correctly, in my youth, I used to have a Jupiter 4 and it had one of those. It's like a little tiny crater. It's like someone just poked a match head into the key.
My friend in Manchester, back in the day, he borrowed some equipment from a very famous Manchester band. I'm not going to say who it was. And he put it in his rack and it rattled around. And he took it apart eventually and he found this massive bag of pills in the back of it.
Yes! I'm not kidding you. This is no word of a lie. We opened up an OB8 once that we'd had shipped to a programmer who opened it up. And obviously they'd obviously been caught red-handed, as it were, and just slid it between the keys and the actual unit itself. And there was this, probably like a 30-year-old spliff. We were quite tempted, I have to say.
Frame it.
No, you go first. No, we didn't do that.
I'm trying to find a picture. I tell you what, Google does not yield good results when you search for dope burn on a keyboard, I can tell you. But I can picture it's a very specific kind of marking, isn't it? It's like a little crater.
That's really funny.
Oh, anyway. Well, it feels like that's probably a good time to stop. I very much appreciate you joining me, gentlemen. I know it's summer's a little slow, but we've had a lot of fun as usual. And of course, you can always just watch my wall if you're feeling interested. There you are. It's currently
like
purple.
You're going to do a cookery show or something.
Well, we could do something like that. But I figured, we could maybe hang, because it's going to basically go all the way across and round. Right. We're getting 6 flats made that are 8x4s, so that we can build these sort of walls and maybe hang things off them. And I was thinking I could get someone to graffiti it. Hold on a sec. I got this other wallpaper. I'll just show you.
Who would have thought we'd start discussing wallpapers?
It's middle age for you, isn't it?
As long as we don't start discussing borders or anything like that, because I can't bear them.
Yeah, dado rails and boards.
This is more your quality kind of
you lost me all that.
Reproduction of brickwork, basement brickwork. When I was a lad as a builder, I used to spend hours with needle guns trying to get this crap off brick walls. And you can buy wallpaper that actually has it sort of...
That distressed look.
The distressed brick look. That's 15 quid a roll, though, so I'm not sure I'm going to be going for that. Across 7 flats, that's going to cost a fortune. It'd be cheaper to decorate the house. But yes, so anyway. But I have discovered that if you make wallpaper paste out of corn flour, you can take the wallpaper off very easily afterwards. So that's what I shall be doing. Anyway, this is all decorating tips with Sonic Talk. There we are.
Diversifying,
that's right. Well, we figured that there's probably a bigger market for soft furnishings and interior decor than there is for audio, so we thought of thinking of splitting the show.
Divide and conquer.
Years and years ago, I think it was like one of my first ever. Do you remember the MIDI music show? It was some future thing at Olympia, and when we turned up, we were a little bit late. This queue was just like right round the block of Olympia, and I remember saying to Chris, "Blimey, it's going to be a bit of a hectic day." And then we realised that most of them were old biddies, and they were queuing for the knitting show.
It was it wasn't a Rick Wakeman signing then.
Yeah.
Knitting show.
Yes, I know. I've seen that when you go up to NEC, and there's you've got Soft Toy World, and the hall is like 20 times the size of your little music ghetto.
That's really...
It is funny, isn't it? But so maybe I don't know. I'm not sure how I could. I don't really think I could do a soft. Maybe your missus could do one on soft furnishings and interior decor, but not me. I don't think I could host it, I suppose, and maybe try and sell the ads. Although I'm not very successful at that, as you've known, as you've been a guest of the show for 6 or 7 years. It's not like we're getting through sponsors at a rate and they're queuing up. But if anyone else is interested out there, I'd be wallpaper. I'll mention it. I'm not sure it has a relevant audience, but you know what I'm saying.
Sponsored by Farrow and Ball.
Yes, could be, couldn't it? Flower arranging, loads more people in the queue. Yes, that's right. Flower arranging stuff, says Azzy Ahead in the chat room. And I want to apologise to Azzy Ahead actually because he didn't win again. And bizarrely, there was 100 entries or 99 entries, and the random number generator picked number 96. You know, it was yeah. Anyway, I can't fix it. Underwater basket weaving, says Synth Beast. No, that's an interesting concept. I'm not sure there's much of a. Yeah, that sounds really niche. Celery.
No.
Yeah. Cupcake world. Sonic chalk. How about that? We could just kind of have, or tonic talk. Anyway, fellas, thanks for hanging in there. We'll say goodbye to Dave Spears, GeForceSoftware.com. Thank you very much for that little snippet with Alessandro Cortini. Very much appreciated.
No, very good. Well, thank you, Alessandro. I emailed him this morning going, is there any chance we can just use this little bit? And he came back saying, yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
so, yeah,
well, I've also emailed him because I want to do an interview, so I'm hoping to get him on a show while I'm away in August. I'll try and get one in to help promote his album, and we can push that as well, so that'd be good. Anyway, thank you, and also thank you very much to Robbie Bronneman there at Robot Studios. Check out his stuff at Sushi Friday Music on Facebook and various other good social media outlets. You off on tour? You doing some gigs this weekend?
Yeah, not this weekend, next weekend, and then it's busy all the way up until the tour. So yeah, I've just got lots and lots of things that I need to finish in the studio in the next couple of weeks, just so I can go away knowing that it's all done. Yes, well, good luck with that. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us. Thank you very much. So thanks, fellas. That's it. I think I might pray. I think I can bless this. I set this up so that it would play the video. I don't know if maybe I didn't. I'll play some out with some more Alessandro Cortini. Oh, there it goes. There. So this can play us out, and I can fade to black. This is more of a track off Sono, which I think is the track Sono. So Alessandro Cortini, do check it out. You can buy it on iTunes. I think it's about £8 or something, or £6. I can't remember. Digital downloads aren't terribly expensive these days. So there it goes. The sound of Strymon and the Super Puss delay pedal apparently as well. He told me. I've never heard of that. So I'll fade to black. And that's it. See you.